this is VTV News Live at 3 p.m. local time. My name is Lena Pham, and here's what we have for the headlines at this hour. Vietnamese ambassador briefs situation after attempted coup in Turkey. Vietnam, Philippines strengthen ties and celebrate 40 years of diplomatic relation. And Formosa claim innocence in waste dumping scandal. Top news of the hour. A military coup broke out in Turkey while UNESCO World Heritage Convention was being held in Istanbul. More than 150 countries expressed concern about the condition of their 2,400 delegates, including ministers and ambassadors who attended the conference. The Vietnamese delegation, led by Vietnamese ambassador to Turkey, Phạm Sanh Châu, also participated in the conference.
Turkish troops stated on July the 15th they had seized power. Gunfire and explosions rocked both Istanbul and Ankara throughout the night, but by the early hours of July the 16th, there were indications that the coup was crumbling. According to Vietnamese ambassador to Turkey, Phạm Sanh Châu, all 25 members of the Vietnamese delegation attending the conventions are now safe. The ambassador said that the city was terrorized with gunshots and aircraft. The incident happened unexpectedly after delegates to the convention prayed for the 84 victims of the massacre in Nice, France. Ambassador Phạm Sanh Châu added that the situation is stabilizing as Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan announced that the citizens answered his call to defy a curfew order and take to the streets to support democracy and the legally elected government.
Yesterday, French police identified the truck driver who deliberately plucked through crowds in the French Riviera resort of Nice, killing 84 people and leaving scores injured at a Bastille Day celebration. According to police, the terrorist is a 31-year-old Tunisian-born French citizen named Mohamed Laoue Boulan. Investigators and medical experts searched Mohamed's apartment at 9:30 a.m. local time with the support of armed police and collected evidence about the terrorists. President Trần Đại Quang extended condolences to French President François Hollande over the loss of life and injuries caused by terror attacks. On the same day, Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc and Deputy Prime Minister of Foreign Affairs Phạm Bình Minh also conveyed sympathy to their respective French counterparts Emmanuel Valls and Jean-Marc Ayrault. Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc held talks with leaders of ASEAN countries to discuss ties with Vietnam. More in the following.
Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc met with the leaders from Laos, Singapore, Thailand, Republic of Korea, Germany, the Netherlands, Poland, Switzerland and Malta, emphasizing that the cooperation between ASEAN countries should focus on the effectiveness. There should also be specific plans on the implementation of human resource training and development, climate change mitigation and water resource and sustainable management. All the leaders at the meeting stressed the importance of sharing experiences, supporting sub-regional and regional cooperation, especially in the Mekong and Danube areas for poverty and gap reduction, as well as sustainable development. Prime Minister Nguyễn Xuân Phúc and the other leaders also discussed about the collaboration between the two continents and issues in relation to the East Sea. They agreed upon resolving disputes by peaceful methods on the basis of international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea 1982, in order to ensure freedom, security and safety of the sea and air traffic across the East Sea.
A ceremony to celebrate 40 years of diplomatic ties between Vietnam and the Philippines took place on Friday night in Manila. Former President Fidel Ramos, Defense Minister Delfin Lorenzana, and other high-ranking Philippine officials attended the event. Vietnamese ambassador to the Philippines, Deng Chiu-Zeung, reiterated that the strategic partnership between the two countries since November 2015 has marked a new era for their relationship. Philippine Deputy Foreign Minister Ling Ling Gay, Alan Kaleo said that the Philippines highly values the past 40 years of relations with Vietnam, and the strategic partnership contributes to realizing the ASEAN Community Vision in 2025. On Friday, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism organized a conference on developing tourism into a key economic sector by 2020. Vietnam currently welcomes 14 to 15 million tourists every year, contributing 9 to 10% of the total GDP, with total revenue reaching $32.5 billion. Deputy Prime Minister Vương Đình Huệ requested that leaders within the industry set up measures on quality standards for the service economy, rather than relying on quantitative indicators like tourist arrivals. The Immigration Department has taken action against the recent violation of public order in Da Nang City by Chinese tourists, providing a code of conduct to tourists before they enter Vietnam. This code has been translated into English, Chinese, and Korean. More in the following.
This tourist support center in Da Nang City provides guidance for tourists on do's and don'ts in the city. Each tourist has been given a code of conduct available in Chinese, Korean, and English. 5,000 code of conduct papers written in Chinese have been given out at airports, gas stations, tourism sites, and restaurants in the city, and more are being printed.
I really like the brochures in Da Nang City that are written in Chinese, including the tourist code of conduct. These help us know what we are allowed to do and not to do in tourism sites in Da Nang City.
The code of conduct reminds tourists to stand in line to wait for their turn, give up seats for women, elders, and children, put trash in the waste bin, and not spit inappropriately, and not to touch relics on display in museums.
The number of Chinese tourists to Da Nang rose by 83% compared to the same period last year. However, many Chinese tourists have acted inappropriately, making purchases with a Chinese yuan, burning Vietnamese currency, illegally acting as tour guides, and distorting Vietnam history.
The code of conduct has been sent to companies that offer services to Chinese tourists and handed out to foreign tourists. We also promote the code of conduct at airports and support centers. In the long run, the city needs to improve its service quality to attract tourists with purchasing power.
All foreign tourists traveling to Vietnam have to abide by the law. The code of conduct helps tourists understand the local culture and customs and ensures that everyone can enjoy Da Nang City together.
Coming up next on VTV News, Formosa claims innocence in waste dumping scandal. And later on, ethnic children receive training to prevent sexual abuse.
Exotic Vietnam is an intriguing blend of many charms. This land is where all manner of stunning landscapes await like a visual feast, rivaled only by the beauty of its people and their abundantly rich tradition and culture. Here is where you can relive the past in richest color or live it up in the bright lights of the big city. With so much more to offer, Vietnam is simply unforgettable.
Welcome back to VTV News. Formosa Hà Tĩnh has stated that they are innocent in the case of more than 100 tons of illegally dumped waste at a farm in Giang district, instead of blaming urban environment companies or UECs in the area. Under the contract signed, only ordinary industrial waste would be allowed to be dumped at the farm. In addition, the contract also stipulated Party B, the UECs in Giang district, would have to transfer mud kegs to licensed waste treatment centers. However, according to the Department of Natural Resources and Environment of Hà Tĩnh, this contract is unlawful, as UECs in Giang district have no legal right to transport or provide treatment to industrial solid waste. The European Union has recognized a ruling against Chinese claims to rights in the EC by the Arbitral Tribunal in The Hague, backing by a case brought by the Philippines on July the 12th. The EU also stressed their commitment to maintaining legal order in the seas based on the principles of international law. A statement by the EU reiterated that the settlement of disputes should be based on the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The European Union declared its support for negotiations between the parties in order to create a code of conduct for parties in the EC. Continuing on the topic, people may question what the mechanisms of international law behind this decision are. The following report has more.
After more than 3 years, on July the 12th, the tribunal delivered its final word on the case filed by the Philippines against China on the East Sea Maritime Road. The tribunal concluded that there was no legal basis for China to claim historic rights to resources within the sea areas falling within its so-called nine-dash line. The tribunal also found none of the sea features claimed by China in Spratly Archipelago were capable of generating an exclusive economic zone. China doesn't accept the award because the country rejected to participate in the case in the first place. However, Annex 7 of UNCLOS allows proceedings even though the party rejects to join it. Absence of the party or failure of the party to defend its case shall not constitute a bar to the proceedings. Since 2013, the tribunal has carried out necessary measures to ensure that it has jurisdiction over the case. The tribunal has carefully examined its jurisdiction. Its decision approaches issues in the case directly. The decision was clear and there is no ambiguity which parties could use to misunderstand or misexplain it. Experts believe that the case could become a precedent to solve disputes in the East Sea.
And in its decision, today's statement goes on to say that such steps could provide the basis for further discussions aimed at narrowing the geographic scope of their maritime disputes, setting standards for behavior in disputed areas, and ultimately resolving their underlying disputes free from coercion.
However, according to experts, there is no specific mechanism to implement this award. Its implementation will depend on the goodwill of related parties.
A conference was held in the U.S. state of California to introduce investment opportunities in Ho Chi Minh City. The event saw the attendance of American investors, including overseas Vietnamese, who were especially interested in high-tech.
At the event, the vice chairman of the Ho Chi Minh City's People's Committee, Trần Vĩnh Tuyến, reiterated that Ho Chi Minh City, as the leading city of the country's economy, offers many investment opportunities. The city now enjoys investments from more than 60 countries, with the U.S. ranking 12 in terms of registered capital. But this number is still well below potential.
We hope more investors from the U.S., especially overseas Vietnamese, invest in Ho Chi Minh City. Authorities will create favorable policies on tax and land and improve administrative procedures to support businesses.
Some issues need further improvements, such as infrastructure and labor. City authorities answered questions from investors who showed interest in business opportunities in the city.
3 high-tech parks. There's one in Hanoi, there's one in Da Nang, there's one in Ho Chi Minh City. I think the one in Ho Chi Minh City is probably the furthest along, best developed so far. And you know, it's coming together. I've watched it over the last few years, and now I'm trying to get a couple projects launched there myself. So, hopefully.
Many similar conferences on investment have been held in the U.S. recently, and more must be done to improve the effectiveness of these events.
The Vietnam Pangasius Association recently introduced a completed Pangasius e-commerce website and farming map in the Mekong Delta. This website acts as an information hub for Vietnamese seafood. The Provincial Fisheries Department suggests fish farmers monitor the Pangasius farming map in the Mekong Delta so they can meet the needs of the integrated market by declaring the origin of the fish. Vietnam is experiencing an e-commerce boom with fast development. Cross-border cooperation in the sector has benefited businesses and Vietnam's economic development. We have more in the following report.
Braised fish is a traditional Vietnamese dish, but it previously didn't have much chance to being sold abroad. However, it has now been provided in foreign markets thanks to e-commerce. This is one way for enterprises to promote their products and services, reduce costs of marketing, and expand their markets.
If enterprises can utilize e-commerce and online marketing, they can save money for marketing, but still ensure marketing effectiveness. E-commerce also helps them reach potential markets and new customers.
E-commerce not only benefits enterprises, but also facilitates trade collaboration between countries.
E-commerce doesn't limit trade in terms of geography and time. Once the market develops further, cross-border cooperation in e-commerce is inevitable, and it will foster both bilateral and multilateral relations among nations.
As such, according to Vietnam E-commerce and Information Technology Agency, Vietnam is focusing on promoting collaboration in e-commerce within ASEAN and Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, APEC.
Vietnam will host 25th APEC Summit in 2017. This will be a chance for Vietnam to hold a series of events related to e-commerce in the country and boost cooperation among APEC's member economies.
APEC contributed 52.5% to the total world's e-commerce revenues, with over $877 billion in 2015. Therefore, facilitating cooperation with APEC members will have Vietnam's e-commerce develop further in the coming time. Thanh Hai, Vietnam Television, Hanoi.
UNICEF statistics indicate that Vietnam recorded 5,300 child sexual abuse incidents from 2011 to 2015. The statistic indicates that in some 70% of the cases, foreigners were involved in the cases. Tourism development has been associated with the increased risk of child abuse and child sexual abuse. The Growing Up Safe project to enhance communication on prevention of child sexual abuse in tourism was launched in Hanoi on July the 17th.
This is a scenario where children could become victims of sexual abuse. It has been developed by the Growing Up Safe project team to help educate children about potential sexual abuse in tourist destinations.
I think it's a method that we use in our training sections. Children can receive the message and learn to protect themselves from sexual abuse.
The project includes two processes, providing training for children and enhancing social communication.
It's very useful to learn more about the intimate parts that I did not know much before.
The project will be carried into tourism hotspots in Sapa in Lào Cai and Nha Hang in Tuyên Quang for ethnic students in the area. The project was initiated by students at the Institute for Studies of Society, Economy and Environment, or ISEE, a UNICEF Vietnam organization for children.
The project tackles issues on child sexual abuse in Vietnam. Vietnam is in need of policy support as well as measures to address the issue. The project could be replicated across the country.
According to a report by UNICEF Vietnam, child sexual abuse has become more serious over the past years. The number of cases on child sexual abuse has been on the rise. From 2011 to 2015, especially cases involving boys.
The Gondao Islands have been listed among Lonely Planet's top 10 places to visit in Asia this year. Ranked at 4th, Lonely Planet described the islands as having moved from darkness into light. For decades at the site of a brutal penal colony, this archipelago now ranks among Asia's hottest emerging destinations. A national park since 1984, their appeal encompasses coral gardens that offer Vietnam's best diving, rewarding hikes in wildlife-rich tropical forests and a coastline studded with gorgeous white sand coves. It added, with air connections from Ho Chi Minh City, Gondao is an ideal place to enjoy fresh food and entertain yourself with perfect beaches. Printmaking is an art form of creating images by printing, usually on paper. The art consists of various techniques of multi-applications such as colorgraph, monotyping, or woodcut. The following report features a Vietnamese artist who has combined these foreign techniques with traditional material in many of her works.
Printmaking originated in China after paper was invented around the 2nd century. European printmaking began with textile printing as early as the 6th century, when the process of papermaking was imported from the East. The art form consists of productions of images, usually on paper, but occasionally on fabric, parchment, plastic, or other support. In her latest exhibition in Vietnam, Quỳnh Trân, a Vietnamese printmaking artist living in Nevada, United States, has introduced her experiments in combining contemporary printmaking techniques with Vietnamese gió paper.
I used gió paper instead of Western papers because I think to me that's very personal. That's already something that represents the roots of me. That's my heritage. And so I try to keep the base, the form, the materials, but at the same time, I try to make it contemporary so I can present it to both sides.
Even though the color combinations and compositions are strongly influenced by American styles, Quỳnh artwork still captures the essence of Vietnamese culture, reflecting in the art forms and materials.
I think the fact that Quỳnh chose gió paper in printmaking makes it more interesting. In the Western countries or other places, they widely use Japanese paper due to its high quality. However, Vietnamese paper also has its own beauty in a unique way.
Quỳnh artwork were inspired by the psychological state in her daily life, which are largely marked by the period of living and traveling between the two countries, as well as the two completely different cultures and social structures.
I think that the artworks are very alluring. It makes me stop and stare for a while to think about the meaning inside.
Well, certainly coming to Vietnam has changed my perspective on the work a lot. And then also getting to see the work in a larger space than another one, the sort of airy quality, I think, is really exemplified. It really sort of gets to stand out.
During the exhibition, Quỳnh also conducted a workshop introducing colorgraph. This is a specialized printing technique on the surface of solid material, not based on the pressure, but using adhesive material to link multiple types of materials such as plastic, paper, metal, to create layers of pattern. The workshop aimed to introduce and exchange techniques with local artists, art students, and interested people.
Even in America, printmaking is not popular. So here in Vietnam, Many people came to my opening and say, you know, this is so different. I haven't seen this before. I haven't heard of this technique before. And so with this basic just introduction, I hope that more people will find it intriguing. Like, oh, actually you could just use all these daily things and you create your own artwork.
The color graph technique allows me to go beyond the limits of colors and materials. I can create an artwork due to my imaginations.
Just like a song of fashion, the fusion of Eastern and Western cultures has become an inspiration for many artists these days. And in many cases, Vietnamese traditional materials and elements have become the highlight of their artworks. As a native Vietnamese artist living and working in the United States, Quỳnh has tried to harmonize the two completely different cultures in her artworks and introduce her cultural heritage to the art lovers around the world.
Now let's take a look at the weather updates. And that's all we have for this edition of VTV News. Thank you very much for being with us. Feel free to log on to vtv4.vn or youtube.com/vtv4go for other updates. Or catch us again at 6 p.m. local time. For now, goodbye from Hanoi.